Now, I live in Canada, and it's the middle of the winter, so we are going to be reviewing a winter-appropriate book, and that is HP Lovecraft's At the Mountains of Madness. I don't know if you can see that. Anyways, this book, it was good. I liked it. I have previously read some HP Lovecraft. I have one of his compilations, which I read a couple of winters ago, and I quite liked it. Now, I will say, before I get started, is that I did like his compilation of shorter stories more than I liked this one. This one's a bit longer, about 100-some pages, but it was still good, so let's talk about it. And fair warning, this video will have spoilers, so if you're planning on reading it or don't want the plot spoiled, yeah, click away. Anyways, the book begins with a Arctic expedition team, and sorry, not Arctic, Antarctic, which is opposite direction. And so they are very well stocked. They are going there to take a drilling ice core samples, and everything is chill. No pun intended. Everything's fine. They're headed out there. No sort of there's no like bad foreshadowing of anything going to happen, right? Everyone's kind of just like, everything's going smoothly is what I'm trying to say. And so when they get there, they kind of, everything's going better than expected, right? The weather's warm. I mean, as warm as it can get down there, right? Because if you go down in like January, February, that's their summer. So it's like the weather's warmer. Anyways, so I guess chronologically, this book is happening at the same time I'm recording this, approximately. So they head down there, and they're taking the ice core samples, and things are going good. They do find something strange, which is like these like weird, weirdly shaped rock formations, but they're like, it's normal, it's fine, whatever. One thing that HP Lovecraft does a good job of is incorporating the science of his day into the plot. So he makes explicit reference to like the different like Pliocene, I don't know, the different scenes, like the different stages of like fossil development. I forget already. Anyways, he makes explicit reference to like the different types of fossils and all that stuff, so it adds like credibility to the narrative. And so they're finding these rock samples. Everything's good. Some things are a bit strange, but there's nothing really too much to worry about. And then this one guy keeps pushing to go further and further. They're like, no, it's dangerous. But he's like, it's all good. We'll go further. And then he ends up at this place with like half the team or a third of the team, and they're radioing each other as this is happening. He's like, you won't believe this. We found this like unknown mountain range. They're like the highest mountains ever, and we are camped at the base of them. We're gonna drill some samples, and hopefully we can like fly up there and check it out. And then they're drilling random spots, and this one guy drills through like into a cave basically. So they kind of excavate a hole and they go in there, and it's a crazy cave. There's like tons of fossils. There's like all these sorts of like unknown stuff. They're freaking out. It's like a massive discovery. And then they also find like these weird organisms and like weird fossils and like, but the thing is these organisms are actually mostly intact, which is really strange. And I don't really know how to describe them. They later become termed the Elder Ones, and they're like these like fluted tubes that are like a few meters tall, and they have tentacles on the bottom and like these like stalks on the head with like mouths, and they have these big wings. They can fly and walk and do everything, and so they're like this weird chimera of, and they're like dissecting them, the specimens they found, and they dissected, or they're like half plant, half fungus, and like some animal. Like they're just like a weird combination that kind of like blows apart everyone's understanding of biology. So it's very a strange discovery. And they make mention that they smell very bad, and the dogs, whenever they get near them, they're like freaking out, and like the dogs cannot stand the smell. So like you can tell like the plot's kind of starting to thicken a little bit, and like the horror aspect of it, like the suspense, is kind of building, like, right, like why are the dogs acting all strange. And then eventually there's radio silence from the camp, and like, okay, that's weird. Like there was a snowstorm, maybe the lines got taken out, like the radio doesn't work. So they put a team together from the base, and they fly over to the camp that was at the bottom of the mountains, and it's in complete disarray. There's like people dead everywhere. There's like the dogs are all slaughtered. There's just blood on everything. 4 of the specimens are missing, and the rest of the specimens have been buried in the snow with like these weird like like pentagon, not pentagon, but like 5-pointed star with dots. Like it's like just the weirdest scene ever, and they're kind of like not trying not to freak out, right? They're trying to like attribute it to like natural origin. Like one of the team members went crazy and like caused this to happen. They don't know. So anyways, they kind of like gather their wits and kind of clean up the camp, get the papers, and they come back. And then they're like, okay, well, before we pack up the expedition, we had better fly up to the mountains that they found, because this is like a big discovery. So 2 people, our protagonist, and I'm forgetting the names at this point. It's like Dansforth or something like that. I finished reading this a few days ago. Danforth. So our narrator and Danforth head up in a small plane, and they fly up to the mountains, and the mountains are incredible. But it's undeniable that this is an ancient city. So, excuse me. Once they kind of crest over the top of the mountains, they realize that this is like an ancient city, and all of the rocks that are carved, it's like geometric, and so it's clear that it was intentionally made. It wasn't just like an accident or like naturally formed. And there's like caves that are like all like perfectly carved. So they're like very surprised at this discovery. So then they started to explore, right? So they set down the plane and they start to go into these like giant rock houses, basically. And inside, all of them are carved with bas reliefs or bas reliefs. I don't know how you say it. Like when you carve something into the face of the wall. And they can tell by the carving the entire history of the species. So these elder ones are they came from the stars, and they like inhabited Earth, and they brought these like slaves with them that they genetically engineered. They're called shoggoths, and like these giant balls of slime that can like form any shape, and like they can like do all the menial labor, so like carve the rocks or to carry the food or whatever. And eventually they decide, or they figure out that over time that species of elder ones, it was getting colder on Earth, so they like dug this hole down to the ocean, and it's like hot down there, and they could live. So they start to explore deeper in the caves to try to find this like this portal into like the warm ocean at the bottom. And they eventually stumble upon one of the missing sleds, or a few of the, not missing sleds, sorry, a few of the gear that they had lost at camp. So like a few cans of food that are like all shredded apart and torn open. They find like a lighter and like some papers, and they're like, what the heck? Like, so then the association they're making is that the 4th missing specimens like thawed, woke up, slaughtered everybody, and then stole some of the stuff and like left and climbed up the mountain to get back to their civilization. Now, they continue exploring, and eventually they make their way towards this giant hole, and as they're getting close, they come across a sled. Now, one of the people from the camp and one of the dogs was also missing, and they find their like corpses inside these sleds that were stolen by the elder ones. Now, it's kind of like a ironic moment because, of course, the scientists that were at the base were like cutting up and dissecting the elder ones to try to discover about them, and the elder ones, once they woke up, did the same thing. They were just trying to like basically like understand the species that they woke up to, and then once they pass that, they're kind of like all shaken up, and then they pass these like giant, like 2-meter tall, like albino flightless penguins. I guess all penguins are flightless, but they have like no eyes because they've like adapted to the dark, and like obviously these massive penguins, but they turn out to be friendly. They're not harmful, so they keep walking, and then as they're getting close, they start like hearing. They find the corpses of 3 of the elder one specimens. But this is where things get crazy, because they can hear something past the fog, and it's foggy because there's this like warm water that's down the hallway, and they can hear this sound. It's like teke lili or something like that. And it's like this musical piping, and they can hear it, so something's alive down there. But these 3 corpses of the elder ones all are missing their heads, so they've been decapitated and they're full of slime. So they're like, what the heck is happening? So they think that there's one more specimen that's going to come and do the same thing to them and decapitate them. So they start freaking out. They start running, and Danforth screams, and then that kind of sets off the thing that's in the shadows to chase them. And they think it is the last of the Elder Ones, but as they're running away, they kind of shine their flashlight back, and they see like this mass of slime. So they realized that based on like the carvings inside the walls, that the shoggoths, these like slaves that were giant slime balls, eventually like out evolved their masters and like revolted and like took over and like killed everybody. So now these Elder Ones that were stuck in the ice and just warmed up and woke up, came back to their city to find it desolated and decimated, and these just got instantly one-shotted by this giant shoggoth that's like way too smart and like strong. And then this shoggoth is like rolling down the hallway trying to catch them, and they're just like freaking out. They're like running as fast as they can. They get back to the plane and they just take off. And then as they're flying back, the protagonist has to switch seats with Danford, the pilot, to fly home, because Danford is having like this nervous breakdown and can't fly the plane. And then it kind of ends with the narrator saying like, I'm just recording this to try to like provide evidence of why we should never go back there. So yeah, crazy story. And then in my edition as well, at the end, it also has one of HP Lovecraft's famous essays, Supernatural Horror in Literature, where he kind of gives the history of the horror tale, kind of argues for it, argues that it's like its own distinct form that's like very important to the history of literature. And I just want to read to you the first line of the essay, because it's kind of like a memorable line. He writes, "The oldest and strongest emotion of mankind is fear, and the oldest and strongest kind of fear is fear of the unknown." And so, evidently, Lovecraft understands the basis of his craft very well, and puts it into practice very well as well. So, yeah, that's At the Mountains of Madness. Thanks for listening. Definitely would recommend reading some Lovecraft. Maybe not this one right away, but maybe one of his short story compilations. Yeah, thanks for listening. See you next time.